Hello, how are you doing? Welcome to my library. My name is Chinsia. If you're new here, hi. Absolutely lovely to meet you. And if you're not new here, hi, welcome back. I hope you're doing fabulously. So, I'm going to be doing something a wee bit fun today. Something I haven't done in many years, and that is a book haul. Because last Friday was my birthday. I turned 30 years old. And because I turned 30 years old, people took pity on me and they got me books. Also, they got me vouchers as well and money to put towards books. So, there's all that fun. If you've been watching me for a few years, you know I do a no-buy year. I'm on my third no-buy year at the moment. I don't really buy books for fun, not for myself anyway. I bought some PhD books that I needed for my core texts that my supervisor asked me to invest in. But aside from that, I haven't bought anything for myself. However, credit. There's lots of credit. There's so many books to discuss today. So I thought I'd share with you some of my reading interests, what I'm invested in with my birthday money, and also what people got me based on my interests. So I just thought it'd be a fun little wee video sharing you some new releases as well, because not all of these texts are, you know, old school classics. There's some new releases, and just share with you my literature taste, because if you're not familiar with me, you won't know what my literature taste really is. So we're warming back into it. So the first two books I'm actually going to share with you today are two books I got using Waterstones credit. So if you're not from the UK, basically there's a chain store called Waterstones, and with it you collect little wee stamps. Every time you spend £10 you get a stamp. If you collect 10 stamps you get £10 off a book. And I had two of these stamps. They're digital stamps, but I had two full cards, so I had £20 to spend at Waterstones prior, so from collecting from Christmas time, I'm buying books for people and also buying books for birthdays, and strategically buying these books on days which they do double stamp days. It's a whole thing. It's a whole like fun time in the UK when it comes to book buying. But effectively I had two stamp cards and I chose the books last month, actually, I think it was last month, what I was going to spend them on. So I thought I'd share those with you because they're beautiful. So the first one is this collection of short stories called The Haunting Season, Ghostly Tales for Long Winter Nights, which is exactly what I want to read in this season. Will I be able to read it doing a PhD? I don't know. Over on my Patreon channel, hi patrons, thank you for sponsoring this video. This is all because of you. I'm releasing another video just sharing a little bit more of an insight into how that PhD is going at the moment and more of my personal feelings on it. But if I get around to reading a couple of these short stories, I'll be very, very happy. So this beautiful collection, actually the person that I bought this collection for was actually Natasha Pulley. Many years ago I read her book, The Watchmaker of something Street. The name has just gone out of my head. I know it's a black book with fancy green octopus on it. I loved it. I really enjoyed that book. But it's been over like 7 years since I read it, I think. God, I'm so old. It can't have been that long, surely. The Watchmaker of Filigree Street. Pretty sure that was it. But I know I really enjoyed that book, so therefore I got this collection because she's in it. Jess Kidd has also contributed to here. We have Natasha Pulley. Oh my goodness, Kieran Millwood Hargrave, love her. Bridget Collins, yeah, a beautiful wee collection. And also, can we just admire the side of this book where the pages have like this little golden leaf on it, literally gold leaf, which is hilarious, hilarious pan. I bought that with my £10 voucher for Waterstones, and I also bought this book, Whisper by Chan Yu Ko. This is a new translation by Roddy Flag. I knew it was a Roddy. Roddy Flag translated this from Korean. It's a South Korean ghost story. A taxi driver is effectively trying to find out who or what murdered his wife. And what it is, apparently before these people die, they hear like a whisper voice, either singing or what, this kind of alluring voice, and I'm not sure entirely. Some people say, I believe they said some people hear it in Japanese, other people hear it in like Taiwanese, like I believe it was Taiwan, yeah, Taiwanese, and they hear this voice before they die, so he's trying to investigate this kind of ghost that's killing people. Sounds right up my street. I love scary books, particularly in winter, so I'll be going on to this next as a fun read after one of my book club reads for another book club. I'm part of two book clubs. I run my own on Patreon called The Classical Academic, and that's for all Patreon members, and we just talk about like classical texts on there, so we'll read them together and I'll give a review and an analysis of the text for those not familiar with classical texts or classics or myths and all that jazz. And then I'm part of one in Edinburgh just for fun, and I have to always prioritise that book club because I have very little free time for reading nowadays, but we're trying to work it out. Over on Patreon, we're discussing it. But now we get into the books that people got me. So I like it when people surprise me, particularly with books that I don't have. So this one I've never heard of before, but my friend Chloe is very good at finding books that I haven't heard of before. It's called Athena's Child by Hannah Lynn, and I know literally nothing about this book. So I will share the blurb. By the way, all the books I list will be listed down below, so you can check them out. And if you use those links, they're affiliate links, so you support my channel inadvertently if you treat yourself to a book, so thank you. So we'll read the blurb together. Gifted and burdened with beauty far beyond the mere mortals, Medusa seeks sanctuary with the goddess Athena. We all know how that turned out. But when the lustful gaze of the mighty Poseidon falls upon her, even the temple of Athena cannot protect her. Seems like a retelling. So it sounds like a proper retelling. It's clearly not a reimagining as I sometimes... So we have different types of classical retellings. We have the retellings where it sticks to the myth but slightly alters it or adds more narrative. A Song of Achilles, Circe, Silence of the Girls, don't get me started on that. Patrons know exactly how I feel about that book. Things like that. And then we have reimaginings when people kind of incorporate the ancient mythology and use it as a skeleton for their own story. So most famously Ulysses by James Joyce. We have many of writings by Virginia Woolf. The Giant Dark, which I read recently. Ali Smith has done it, I think it was Boy Meets Girl or Girl Meets Boy, can't remember which way round it was. Didn't enjoy that, we're not going to talk about that either. But we have reimaginings, which is like a retelling of the myth in contemporary or later society, whatever. I do believe there's actually a reimagining of Pandora that's coming out later. I actually think it's the beginning of next year, or could be later this year. Oh my goodness, that terrified the poop out of me. But oh, it's my sink, how fun. But basically, that's a reimagining in Victorian era of Pandora. So it'll be interesting to see that. But yes, this is the one that my friend Chloe got me. Then at my birthday, my friend Elsa got me this wee re-enchantment issue of Cunning Folk. I have heard of Cunning Folk, but I never had a copy in my hands. I've never seen it. Effectively, it's like a wee pamphlet of different stories or photographs or images. Poetry, I believe, is also in here. Ooh, the history and lore of magical herbalism, right up my street. Love that kind of stuff. There's a new book coming out later this year. Oh, actually, I think it's already out. It's like a hardback though, so I'm waiting for it to come out in paperback and use my Christmas credit on it whenever I get Christmas credit from people. It's a witch history. I will leave it up here. Love that kind of stuff. So I'll link that down below if anyone's interested. But it's in a hardback at the moment, and I'm not interested until it comes out in paperback. The next was what my friend Special K got me. This is 200 Years of Scottish Ghost Stories, Tales for Twilight, and it comes with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, James Hogg, Margaret Oliphant, Ian Rankin, James Robertson, Muriel Spark, Robert Louis Stevenson, and many other more. It's gorgeous. Isn't this like a beautiful... It's actually... I love this. It's like a waxy feel book, and because it's just so apt for me, I love ghost stories. I live in Scotland. I love the idea of reading, and actually there's a flash of this. There's a flash. You'll keep this in head because there's more in the bag. And then we have the only non-fiction book I believe in this entire haul. It's Steven Pinker's Rationality. Someone bought me this. What it is, why it seems scarce, and why it matters. And he's the author of Enlightenment Now, which I haven't read, in all honesty. I think I've only read articles by Steven Pinker. I don't think I've read any of his books. If I were to look at his, you know, when they list the wee also read or also published by Steven Pinker in the book, no, this will be a first. So if you like Steven Pinker, he's just released his new book, and a lovely friend got that for me as well. And then finally, from my birthday night, my friend got me a cookbook. This is the vegan cook. I lost my voice. This is the Happy Pear vegan cookbook. I love the Happy Pear, and I don't own any of their books, and I can't cook to save my life. I cooked for my birthday. I cooked everyone a 2-course meal. I combined starter and main together, and then actually no, my mother made the cake, so I only cooked one main. I cooked like one meal, and it took me like 9 hours for 10 people. But I've always loved the Happy Pear. So someone gave me money, and when someone gives me money, I spend it on books. No, that's a lie. I spent 50% of the money on books, and then I gave 20% to charity, and then 30% I put in my savings, because we have to save some money, don't we? But I went to the glorious Golden Hair Books, and that's where I chose to spend 50% of the money that I got for my birthday. And so we're moving into the brown paper bag, which we absolutely love. Now, I wasn't actually planning. I had a tote bag, but I'd already filled it up with presents that my friend had given me when they met me, so I didn't have another paper, a tote bag. So apologies for using a paper bag, but I do actually reuse these. I use them for arts and crafts, so it's really great to actually have a paper bag. But anyway, the first book I got from Golden Hair Books. Oh, by the way, if you're curious, when I mentioned a bookshop, I have a whole video on my channel where I went around my favourite Edinburgh bookshops at Christmas time, and Golden Hair Books features in that. So if you want to see it, check it out there. So we have first up The Cabinet by Eun-Soo Kim. And I do believe this is another Korean book. See, I can't read Korean. I want to learn. I'm learning French at the moment. I'd like to learn Korean next. But I believe, I looked inside, there was a wee little sticker. Yes, this book is published with the support of Literature Translation Institute of Korea. So, and it's translated by Sean Lynn Halbert. So to give a summary, because it can do it much better than I can, babbling on. Cabinet 13 looks exactly like any normal filing cabinet, except this cabinet is filled with the files of symptomers. People whose weird abilities and bizarre experiences might just mark the emergence of a new species. But to Mr. Kong, a harried office worker who spends his days looking after the cabinet, the symptoms are just a headache. From the woman whose doppelganger broke up with her boyfriend, to the man with a ginkgo tree growing from his fingertips. And then there's a guy who won't stop calling, asking to be turned into a cat. Speaking of which, my dog just decided to start playing. So if you hear rattling, that's my child playing. So again, I hadn't heard of this book before. I was really intrigued, so I got it. Also, funky cover. Oh, I really just noticed the filing cabinets. The next one, ooh, Chunky Beast, we love this. This is The Orchard, a novel by David Hopin. And this one has another, I love the kind of texture. So whilst one of my books earlier had like a waxy feel, this has kind of a rough feel. I quite like this. So, this is a commending debut and a poignant coming-of-age story about a devout Jewish high school student whose plunge into the secularized world threatens everything he knows of himself. In ultra-Orthodox Brooklyn, Ari Eden's days are dedicated to intense study and religious rituals, and adolescence feels profoundly lonely. So when his family announces that they are moving to a glitzy Miami suburb, or Miami? It is Miami, isn't it? I suddenly thought, is it Miami? Who says Miami? Me, apparently. Ari seizes his unexpected chance for reinvention. Enrolling in an opulent Jewish academy, Ari finds herself entangled in the school's most exclusive and wayward group. These friends are magnetic and defiant, especially Evan, the brooding genius of the bunch, still living in the shadow of his mother's death. My dog's just going absolute haywire with her toy. She always does it when I'm filming. Like, she just like stares at me when I'm working, like, please play with me. But when I'm actually in a process of making a noise, she likes to try and make more noise than me. But yeah, I thought that sounded really interesting. I love kind of these, I don't know, when I read about like an academy or something, I'm like, ooh, it's gonna be the next Secret History. I have no idea. It's just so up my street. Now the next one, again, here we go. So this may overlap with, in fact, I could do a wee check, couldn't I, against the two of them. But I actually got myself, I think there's more in this one. Fantastic. As I'm looking at there may be an overlap in a couple of the stories, but aside from that, we have another Haunted Voices, an anthology of Gothic storytelling from Scotland. This seems to have more different stories in it, so we have an array of different writers. But if I were to check, like we're going to do a live comparison now to anyone who's considering buying one of these two texts, if the stories overlap. So let me check. One's slightly more old school, the other more contemporary. So, if you're interested in more old school, like classic Scottish stories, we go with this one. And if you want more contemporary writers, seems to be Haunted Voices. Fabulous for me, absolutely fabulous. I get double the amount of what I wanted. We have this chunky monkey called Cathedral by Ben Hopkins. It looks funny, I'm looking at it backwards. Hopefully it went backwards for you. A novel that is rich in vicissitudes of mercantilism, politics, religion, and human experience. A thoroughly immersive read and a remarkable feat of imagination. Cathedral tells a story about obsession, mysticism, art, and earthly desire. It deftly combines historical fiction with a tale of adventure and intrigue. At the centre of the story is the cathedral. Its construction in the 12th and 13th centuries in the town of Hagensburg unites a vast array of unforgettable characters whose fortunes are inseparable from the shifting political fractions and economic interests that are vying for supremacy. Anything to do with sociopolitics, like a sociopolitical narrative in some way, I'm in. It has to be, I can't read like romance heavy books or romance focused books. Has to be socio-political in some degree, and this sounded right up my street. I hope it's good. And the final, the chonkiest of the chonkiest, as I would say, this is, I don't want to mess up the name, so excuse me for reading it straight up. Tomb of Sand by Gitanjali Chi. I am sorry if I butchered that name. And I believe this is also in translation. Let me make sure that I give the translator credit where credit is due. I hate it when I overlook a translator. Daisy Rockwell. Oh god, it's right on the front cover. It's this weird pale blue. Didn't even notice it. I love this collection. This Tilted Axis, I believe, is the publisher. Yes, I'm just going on the base of the actual symbol of their colour. I love this, and for a book this big, this was dropped it. This was only £9.99. That's cheap for a book this big nowadays. Like, not, I mean, back in the day, when I was the first bookseller, yes, it was kind of normal. Now this would normally be like £15. So the fact that it was this, I love you, Tilted Axis. Thank you for making affordable chonky fiction. Also, winner of the English Prize pen. But let me give you the blurb so you're familiar with this book. In northern India, an 80-year-old woman slips into a deep depression at the death of her husband and then resurfaces to gain a new lease of life. Her determination to fly in the face of convention, including striking up a friendship with a Hijra person, confuses her bohemian daughter, who is used to thinking of herself as the more modern one of the two. Rather than respond to tragedy with seriousness, Gitanjali Shi's playful tone and exuberant wordplay results in a book that is engaging, funny, and utterly original, at the same time as being an urgent and timely protest against the destructive impact of the borders and boundaries, whether between religions, countries, or genders. Interesting. I, again, haven't heard anything of it before, but it intrigued me. Again, I love the idea of, I mean, I'm hoping there may be dark comedy in it. My fiction is very dark comedy when I write it. So everything that I do is like very depressing, technically, but humorous. And I love fiction that is also the same. And when I saw that she slips into a depression, I was like, is there going to be like dark humor? Because that's so my cup of tea. I'm strange like that. But yes, those are the books I got for my birthday. Not all of them. There are 5 more to come, but I will discuss those in Vlogmas. Because I am doing Vlogmas again this year, thanks to Patreon. Thank you, Patrons, for supporting me and helping me get through to the fact that I can do Vlogmas this year. Going to be much more chill this year. We are just kind of just chatting about life every day, and just documenting anything that I find interesting to chat about. Not scripted. I can't afford to do scripting, I'm afraid, with the amount of work I have on. But I just want to say thank you for watching this. Thank you for all your birthday wishes, for those of you who wished me a happy birthday over on Instagram. But yeah, that's everything, and I will see you soon for another video. And remember, books save lives, so keep reading.